What do you do when your company manufactures literally millions of humidifiers, but the global population is just having an unusually healthy year?
Right. Or, when you sell top-tier backpacks, but geopolitical tensions are trapping your profit margins on a cargo ship halfway across the world.
Exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking into the surprisingly complex Q1 fiscal 2027 earnings of consumer products giant Helen of Troy.
Yeah, and we're pulling directly from their official July 8th, 2026 earnings presentation and the press release for this.
So our mission for you today is to really unpack how a massive global house of brands is actively basically tearing down its own internal power structures to survive an incredibly hostile macro environment.
And even if you don't instantly recognize the corporate name Helen of Troy, I guarantee you have their products in your home right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost impossible to avoid them.
Yeah, like if you have an OSO peeler in your kitchen drawer or a hydro flask on your desk.
Yeah. Yep. Or an Osprey backpack in the closet, or even a Vicks thermometer in the bathroom cabinet. You are actively participating in their ecosystem.
Right. They also own Dry Bar, Hot Tools, PUR water filters, Honeywell air purifiers. It's just a massive, sprawling portfolio.
It spans from beauty to outdoor survival, which, creates this immediate structural tension.
Oh, definitely.
Because how does a single corporate entity steer a ship that makes both curling irons and camping gear through a global economy that feels completely unpredictable right now?
Well, to figure out their survival strategy, we really have to look at the scoreboard for Q1.
Right. And against a lot of bearish market expectations, they actually posted some highly robust top-line growth.
They really did.
Yeah.
Total consolidated net sales hit $402.1 million.
Which is an 8.2% increase year over year.
Yeah. And in the current retail environment, where discretionary spending is supposedly freezing up, clearing 8% growth is a massive signal.
It's huge. Their home and outdoor segment grew by 9.5%, and beauty and wellness grew by 7.0%.
We're seeing international demand hold incredibly strong for items like those Osprey packs, alongside some really successful new product launches.
Right, but the earnings presentation also pointed out a timing shift in retailer orders.
Yeah, that's a really important detail. Retailers were pulling orders that normally would have happened in a later quarter right into Q1.
And that was simply because of tariff uncertainty, right?
Exactly. They wanted to secure the inventory before any geopolitical trade policies shifted and made those goods more expensive.
Makes total sense. And on the beauty and wellness side, the growth was driven heavily by nail care, fans, and thermometers.
It's basically the ultimate diversification play.
It really is. It's like an all-star sports team. If the hair tools are moving slowly, the water filters pick up the slack.
Right, insulating the broader portfolio from a sudden drop in demand in, any one hyper-specific category.
But wait, I have to push back here because there's a glaring contradiction in the numbers.
Okay, let's hear it.
If sales are up over 8%, why did their adjusted diluted earnings per share, their EPS, plummet from 41 cents last year to just 17 cents this quarter?
Yeah, that is the big question.
Profit per share was sliced by more than half despite an 8% revenue bump.
Right, well, top-line sales growth doesn't automatically equal bottom-line profit.
So if the top line is expanding that aggressively, a drop that severe in the bottom line suggests something is actively bleeding the company out behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, and the primary driver dragging down the EPS this specific quarter was a substantially higher adjusted tax expense.
Oh, interesting. So it was just taxes?
Well, largely, yeah. They simply carried a heavier tax burden globally compared to the same period last year.
Got it.
Now, they did manage to offset that slightly through lower interest expenses. They've been really aggressive about paying down debt.
Which reduces their servicing costs.
Exactly. But the tax hit was heavy enough to drag the EPS down regardless of the higher sales volume.
Okay, high taxes are one thing, but they're also navigating a brutal margin squeeze across the board right now.
Oh, for sure. Their gross profit margin decreased by 110 basis points.
Landing at 46.0%.
Yeah, and a 110 basis point drop is not just a flesh wound in this industry.
No, definitely not.
In the world of high-volume global consumer goods, losing over a full % of your gross margin fundamentally alters your operating leverage.
Right. You have to sell a significantly higher volume of OXO peelers just to maintain the exact same absolute dollar profit you had last year.
Precisely.
It feels like driving a car with the parking brake fully engaged.
That's a great analogy.
It's like you're pouring more water into the bucket through higher sales, but you're losing it just as fast through holes labeled tariffs and freight costs.
Yeah, you're pressing the gas pedal harder, sales are up 8%, you're burning more fuel, but your actual forward momentum is just being dragged down by this massive grinding friction.
And the earnings call is very transparent about what is causing that friction.
They cited a net unfavorable impact of tariffs, for one.
Right. And they have inventory obsolescence, where products are just sitting too long and can't be sold at full premium.
Yeah, and they also cited an unfavorable customer mix in home and outdoor.
So those friction points are almost entirely driven by external macro headwinds, aren't they?
Basically, yeah. I mean, Helen of Troy is completely at the mercy of broad inflationary pressures.
Right. When grocery bills spike, the consumer delays buying a $40 insulated water bottle.
Exactly. And you also have the ongoing geopolitical risks, like the tensions in the Middle East, aggressively driving up commodity and freight costs.
Right. Shipping routes are disrupted and rerouted.
Yeah, meaning the transit time and the fuel cost to get a Honeywell fan from a factory in Asia to a distribution center in Mississippi just skyrockets.
Wow. And then throw in unfavorable Chinese yuan currency fluctuations, right?
Yep. The baseline cost of simply acquiring your own inventory eats directly into that 46% margin.
You mentioned the tariffs earlier, and there's a detail in the presentation that I think perfectly illustrates how trade policy physically impacts a balance sheet.
Oh, the $15 million.
Yes. They reported having $15 million in incremental tariff costs currently sitting in their inventory.
Yeah, it's a literal masterclass in supply chain accounting.
How does that actually work?
Well, when a company imports goods subject to a tariff, they obviously pay that tax at the port.
Right.
But under standard accounting rules,
Right.
that cost doesn't hit the income statement immediately. It actually gets capitalized.
So it gets baked into the value of the inventory sitting in the warehouse.
Exactly. So it doesn't drag down the profit margins until that specific hydro flask is finally purchased by a consumer.
Oh, wow. So they basically have $15 million in extra costs acting as a ticking time bomb on their balance sheet.
Precisely. As those goods are sold over the coming months, those capitalized tariff costs will finally hit the income statement.
So that's going to continue to pressure their gross margins, even if the macro environment suddenly improves tomorrow.
Yep, it is a delayed reaction to geopolitical policy.
That delayed reaction really highlights how vulnerable a global supply chain is to external forces.
It really does.
But there is one external force they cited that genuinely caught my attention, mostly just because of how clinical it sounds.
Illness incidents.
Yes. They explicitly cited illness incidents as a headwind.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one.
Wait, so a major global corporation is actually citing a lack of sick people as a business headwind?
They absolutely are. The cold and flu season is tracking well below pre-COVID historical averages.
And that is actively hurting their health-related brands like Vicks.
Yeah, it's the ultimate double-edged sword of the health and wellness sector.
Right, because if your fundamental business model relies on manufacturing humidifiers and thermometers, your forecasting is built entirely on historical biological data.
Exactly. You build predictive models based on decades of seasonal flu patterns. You literally budget for a predictable percentage of the global population falling ill every single winter.
That's a little dystopian to think about.
It is, but the post-COVID reality has completely broken those predictive models.
How so?
Well, social distancing habits, permanent shifts in hygiene awareness, and changes in how respiratory viruses circulate, they've all altered the baseline data.
So the historical averages just no longer apply.
Right. And when the actual illness incidence comes in much milder than the algorithm predicted, you are left holding excess inventory of health products.
And unlike an Osprey backpack, which might sell year-round, a Vicks humidifier has a very specific seasonal window.
Exactly. If you miss it, you're paying carrying costs on that inventory until next year, or you're discounting it heavily.
Which feeds right back into that gross margin squeeze we just discussed.
You got it. It really highlights how uncontrollable biological factors dictate corporate performance just as much as a shipping lane closure.
Okay, so the leadership team at Helen of Troy is staring down global tariffs, Middle Eastern shipping conflicts, sticky inflation, and a stubbornly healthy population.
A lot of headwinds.
Yeah, they cannot control trade policy, and they definitely cannot control the flu.
No, they can't.
So if you can't fix the world, you have to fix your own house. And that brings us to the internal restructuring, led by CEO G. Scott Uzzell.
Right. Azell came in late 2025 with heavy operational experience from Nike and Coca-Cola.
And he's partnering with CFO
Right.
Brian Algrass, right?
Yes. And the immediate strategy they rolled out is encapsulated in this specific mantra.
Better before bigger.
Exactly. Better before bigger.
It is such a direct acknowledgement that, before they can aggressively acquire new brands or scale up, they have to repair the internal plumbing.
Yeah, they have to make the current machine drastically more efficient.
And the mechanism they're using to achieve that efficiency is basically completely tearing down their old matrix organization.
Yep. They're moving away from what they term split attention and category-led decisions.
Right, shifting entirely to a dedicated general manager ownership model.
We are really seeing the limits of the traditional corporate matrix structure here.
Break that down for us.
Well, in the old split attention model, you might have a marketing executive who runs campaigns across 5 completely different brands.
Or a supply chain leader managing logistics for both hair dryers and water filters at the same time.
Exactly. And the problem is that nobody fully owns the ultimate success or failure of a single product line.
It creates bottlenecks.
Massive ones.
Yeah.
Because every major pivot requires committee approval across multiple functional silos.
So the new structure stands up 5 segment general managers and 3 regional general managers.
Yes, and these specific leaders are being handed end-to-end ownership over their specific brand's profit and loss statement, the strategy, and the product innovation.
Okay, so I want to challenge this, though. Is this just a fancy corporate reorganization to shuffle deck chairs, or does this actually change how an OXO peeler gets made and sold?
It fundamentally changes it. By localizing the P&L ownership, you drastically increase agility.
It's like decentralizing a command economy, right? Taking power away from the disconnected capital city and giving it to the local mayors who actually know the towns.
That's a perfect way to put it. In a volatile market where freight costs can spike overnight, or, a viral TikTok trend can drain your inventory in 48 hours, reaction time is literally the only competitive advantage that matters.
Oh, that makes sense. So if a supply chain bottleneck hits the Hydro Flask brand, that specific GM doesn't need to ask permission from a centralized corporate committee to shift marketing spend.
Right, or adjust pricing. They're completely accountable for their brand's margin, so they're fully empowered to pull the levers required to protect it.
And this frees up the segment presidents to focus purely on enterprise-wide strategy.
Exactly. Because the presidents are no longer bogged down in the day-to-day operations of, say, approving marketing copy for a curling iron.
They could just be the traffic control.
Yes. Their job is to ensure the empowered GMs are running fast, but running in parallel lanes, not crashing into each other.
Which is crucial because that speed and agility is heavily reliant on a very specific multi-year master plan they outlined in the sources.
Ah, yes, the 3-phase roadmap.
Right. And the new GMs are essentially the engine for this whole architectural shift.
Yeah, right now, in fiscal year 2027, they are deep in Phase I, which is heavily focused on the foundation.
Phase I is all about defensive fundamentals, right?
Exactly. It's restoring brand momentum, standing up the GM model, and ruthlessly optimizing the balance sheet.
Yeah, they are actively deleveraging. We saw their net leverage ratio drop from 3.87x down to a much healthier 3.48x.
Which is a huge improvement.
It is. And a massive catalyst for that deleveraging was a highly strategic real estate play.
Right. They secured a $54.9 million pre-tax gain from selling a distribution facility in Mississippi.
That is a massive injection of liquid cash.
And that cash injection is vital because of how it impacts the broader financial architecture.
How so?
Well, by using that $54.9 million to aggressively pay down debt, they lower their ongoing interest expenses.
Oh, and lower interest expenses help insulate the EPS from the tax hits and margin squeezes we discussed earlier.
Exactly. It is a prime example of generating cash internally to defend the bottom line when the external market basically refuses to help you.
Okay, so once that foundation is solidified, they move to Phase 2.
Right. Phase 2 spans years 2 and 3, and it's labeled as focus.
This is where they plan to transition from defense to offense.
Yeah, they are looking at investing heavily in priority brands, accelerating their omnichannel presence, and actively targeting mergers and acquisitions.
Meaning they want to dominate both the physical retail shelf and the digital e-commerce space.
Yep. And the M&A strategy in Phase 2 becomes deeply interesting when you view it through the lens of the new GM model.
Oh, because they've decentralized the operational structure.
Exactly. Integrating a newly acquired brand becomes significantly easier.
You don't have to awkwardly wire a new company into a massive matrix.
Right, you simply acquire the brand, appoint a dedicated GM, and plug them into the Helen of Troy resource ecosystem.
The architecture is practically designed to swallow new brands efficiently.
It really is.
And that leads right into phase 3, years 4 and beyond, which is build.
Scaling these power brands and going for major international expansion.
It is a very clean, logical roadmap. But we need to address a glaring contradiction in their forward-looking guidance.
Okay, what stands out to you?
Well, despite the margin squeeze, the tariffs, the sluggish consumer, and the freight wars, management is actually reaffirming and, in some metrics, raising their financial outlook for the rest of the year.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they are projecting consolidated net sales between $1.759 billion and $1.831 billion.
And projecting free cash flow of $85 million to $100 million.
Reaffirming guidance in a macro environment this toxic, isn't management being overly optimistic here? I mean, it borders on delusional unless you have a highly specific mechanism to force growth.
You're right. You cannot simply hope for a better holiday season. The mechanism Helen of Troy is relying on is a concept they call balance sheet productivity.
Okay, walk us through the mechanics of that.
So they aren't just hoping for better weather. They are actively manipulating internal financial levers to generate organic growth despite consumer hesitation.
But how do you pull a financial lever to force growth when a consumer simply refuses to buy a new backpack because their grocery bill is too high?
You extract cash that is trapped in your own operations and weaponize it.
Wow, okay. Give me an example.
Look closely at their inventory management. They actively reduced their inventory by $17 million year over year.
Ah, because every dollar tied up in excess inventory sitting in a warehouse is basically dead capital.
Yeah, exactly. You are paying to store it, insure it, and it generates zero return.
So by shrinking that inventory footprint by $17 million, they freed up a massive amount of working capital.
Yes.
So they take that freed up cash and redirect it.
Exactly. They take the capital that used to be trapped in warehouse storage and redirect it into surgical, high ROI marketing.
Okay, I see.
This is where the empowered GMs earn their keep. They use that cash to relentlessly optimize their digital shelf on e-commerce platforms.
So even if the total pool of consumers looking to buy a water bottle shrinks, the moment one of those remaining consumers types insulated bottle into a search bar, Hydro Flask is the very first result they see.
Exactly. You aren't relying on the pie to get bigger. You are spending aggressively to take a larger slice of a shrinking pie.
And you are funding that aggression internally.
Yep. They are willingly absorbing the short-term pain of tariffs and freight costs because they are building a structurally agile company designed to generate relentless free cash flow.
And that $85 to $100 million in projected free cash flow is basically the lifeblood of the entire strategy.
It is. It funds the debt paydown, it funds the M&A in Phase 2, and it allows them to outmaneuver competitors who are completely paralyzed by the macro environment.
It is a masterclass in ruthless prioritization.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, whether you manage a small project team, run your own startup, or simply want to understand the invisible corporate mechanics behind the product sitting in your kitchen, this case study is a blueprint for surviving chaos.
Yeah, they realize they cannot stop a shipping crisis in the Middle East.
Right, they cannot rewrite tariff laws, and they definitely cannot force the common cold to spread faster.
The external environment is completely out of their hands.
So they focused with extreme prejudice on what they could control: their internal power structure, their inventory footprint, and the speed at which their leaders are allowed to make decisions.
You know, the shift away from centralized control toward hyper-accountable local GMs is probably going to be the defining corporate trend of this decade.
You really think so?
Oh yeah, in the 2010s, money was cheap, inflation was low, and massive conglomerates could afford to be slow and matrixed.
But in the 2020s, with high interest rates and constant global instability, speed is the only viable defense mechanism.
Exactly.
We are watching a multi-billion-dollar enterprise try to act like a nimble startup.
It raises a deeply provocative question for the future of global business, honestly.
Let's hear it.
If massive established consumer brand conglomerates are finding that the only way to survive inflation and global instability is to abandon centralization and adopt these agile startup within a corporation models.
Does the traditional corporate hierarchy eventually go extinct?
Right. Could this become the mandatory blueprint for all large, sluggish businesses?
Mm,
And if you fracture a unified company into a dozen hyper-independent brand fiefdoms, what happens to the unified corporate identity?
that's a great point.
I mean, when a single, highly empowered brand GM decides to go completely rogue, at what point does extreme agility cross the line into complete corporate anarchy?
A delicate balance between speed and chaos, it changes the perspective completely.
It really does.
The next time you grab that OXO peeler from your drawer or fill up your humidifier, realize that you aren't just holding a simple household tool.
Yeah, you are holding the final physical result of an incredibly complex, high-stakes game of global chess.
A game where tariffs, shipping lanes, biological forecasting, and internal power struggles have to be aggressively outmaneuvered by a local corporate mayor just so you can peel a potato.
The machinery required to deliver simplicity is staggeringly complex.
That's all for today's Deep Dive. Thank you for joining us as we unpack the invisible mechanics of the brands we use every day. Keep questioning what's behind the products on your shelf, and we'll be right here to explore the next set of sources with you.